name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Catachrist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.catachrist.com. And our guest for today is Fate's Warning drummer Bobby Jarzombek. Welcome to the show, Bobby. And we're talking to you today because Fate's Warning will be releasing a new album, which is called Long Day and Good Night. It comes out November 6th, and you're part of that. So I'd like to start off the interview asking you, Bobby, how long have you been with the band?
Well, hello everybody out there. I've been with the band since 2007.
Okay.
So it's been 13 years
Wow.
that I've been working with the band.
Well, that's amazing. Now let me ask you: Were you a fan of the band prior to joining, or would you say you became more familiar with the music after you joined?
Well, definitely I was more familiar after, but I remember the band and was into the band way back from the John Arch days from the 80s.
Oh, wow.
When they did those 3 records with John Arch. And then, obviously, when Ray got in the band, I was into the band, No Exit, and everything else that followed that. But Ray's actually from my hometown, San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Definitely had followed those guys at that point while I was doing, other stuff.
Yeah.
But listen to, what they were doing at the same time.
And it's pretty amazing to. I was reading in the press release that it's hard to believe, but it's true that Fate's Warning has actually been together as a band for 35 years. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, Jim has kind of, he's kind of kept it going all these years. Maybe, there was some times where the band just, like maybe people wondered for a year or two here or there, what the band was up to, if the band wasn't touring a lot and, a couple of the records weren't coming out or whatever. But, the band's been, pretty steady, putting out records and touring for a long time now.
Yeah, and I always thought of Fate's Warning kind of as a metal band, but then when I listened to this latest album, I was reading the press release, I never really realized this before, but there's also like a huge progressive rock sound to what Fate's Warning does, and a good example of that is there's one track on the new album called The Largest Shadow of a Day, which is like 11 minutes and 29 seconds. I mean, that's huge, right there.
Yeah. Well, the band has always been known to, I guess on the earlier records, the songs was sort of a little more in the same vein, but I think, as influences kind of popped their way into, the band's sort of writing styles and that kind of thing, because the band has a lot of influences all the way from, heavy stuff, heavy hard rock sort of
metal,
music that the band was listening to, and then Jim is also like a fan of Pink Floyd and a lot of bands that are a little more atmospheric and
listening
kind
to
of sparse music as opposed to being busy all the time. So there's a lot of influences, and the band, I think, that started to show, after the first couple of records, that the band didn't have to be
all metal
all the time.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because, like that's a good way to describe the new album, like atmospheric. It kind of does have, I do hear like Pink Floyd influences. It's kind of interesting you say that. And now let me ask you, Bobby, what, I believe every member of a band brings something into the picture. What do you think you added to the sound of Fate's Warning? Obviously the drum sound, but what are some influences you have that you felt you brought into the band when you joined?
I think in a way that the band has gotten a little heavier musically, just because I think Mark Zonder was a little more. I think I brought a little more bottom end, I should say. There's definitely the songs. There's more double bass in the songs and heavier grooves. Zonder was a little bit less that. I don't know how to explain.
Okay.
Other than that, he was a little more high end. You know, there's a little more hi-hat and ride cymbal combinations and sort of that kind of thing. So maybe it got a little heavier, but at the same time, I also have a sort of sensibilities for playing songs and not playing so busy all the time when I don't need to. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe there's a little bit of a different approach to the songs that aren't busy as opposed to the way Mark Zonder plays those songs. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain exactly. But every drummer is different. Of course, and I think I just approached the music a little differently than he did.
And I think what's interesting with you, Bobby, is I was reading on your Facebook page. Well, you know, people known you for playing with Fates Warning and Sebastian Bach and Alfred. But you're always doing session work. You know, you're always getting these, chance to go on and play on other people's records, and that's got to make you like a more rounded musician, I would think, because instead of just doing metal all the time, if you get a chance to play on a different type of artist, you can go do that, and you can kind of hone your musical skills. That's got to be great fun for you to kind of keep active and keep your skills going, in your downtime.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's kind of to my point of
doing it,
approaching the music a little bit differently, is in the fact that I've played with so many different artists and different styles over the years, from hard rock to really heavy metal, and then I also play even a lot of country music when I'm here in San Antonio doing things around town. So it's I think it's a wide range of styles. So what I bring, I guess, to the band is just a well-rounded drumming approach.
Yeah. I mean that's pretty cool, And let me ask you, how is how did the COVID and all the lockdown stuff affect the making and the recording of this album? I imagine, for one thing, you guys were in different locations. Am I right?
Yeah. So I'm in Texas, and Jim's in on the East Coast in New Hampshire, and then Joey's on the West Coast in LA, and Ray is in Spain.
Oh, wow, you guys are all spread out. Places. Yeah.
But I mean, I've done 3 studio records with the band and one live record, and the way we work is exchanging files and emails, and we'll get on the phone every once in a while and talk about a song here or there, but a lot of it is done by sending Pro Tools files and that sort of stuff, and going back and forth a bunch of times. Me demoing the material and sending it to Jim, and him listening to the drumming and saying, I like this, I don't like this, or whatever, and then we just go back and forth. And that's how we kind of put the whole record together by just going,
going forward,
communicating that way.
Oh, that's interesting. So when let's say you get a song that's just one of the guys has just written, and they send it to you, you get a file or whatever. Do they kind of say, okay, now Bobby, this is kind of how we hear the song in our head, or kind of do your thing, and then we'll talk about it later? What's that process like?
Well, when Jim sends me a song, and sometimes the song won't be completed. So musically, it's always pretty close. Yeah. Sometimes Ray will already have sang on it, and sometimes maybe not. But so I'll get the songs from him, and he'll have drum programming on a lot of it. He'll have programs, all the different parts, and sometimes he'll have parts or sections where he'll say, I really like what I programmed here. If you could play it kind of like your drum program.
Okay.
Sometimes he'll have sections where he'll say, I'm not really sure about, this is just a guide. I'm playing here. Kind of feel it out and play what you want. But a lot of times, what I'll do is, most of the time, what he's sending me is more or less a guide. And I kind of, when I'm listening to the drum programming, I listen to it as the drummer, I'll say, well, he's thinking a lot of double bass. Maybe the double bass will be really busy or something, and he'll throw a little bit of toms in there or something, and I'm thinking, okay, I just have to kind of organize the ideas of what he's hearing and make it really make sense and make it musical. And so, it doesn't, and sometimes it doesn't sound exactly like the drummer would play.
Yeah.
It's just the ideas that he's kind of
coming up with
programming, and I'll listen to it and really make sense of it. So, but sometimes I'll deviate from it a lot. It just depends,
on
what I'm feeling when I hear a certain riff, or when I hear whatever he's presenting to me. So it can vary a little bit as far as what I'm going to do when I hear his, when I hear the parts and all that.
Yeah, I think most people would be surprised to learn just how important the drum sound is to any given record, because from what I understand, typically a band will go in, and the very first guy to record his stuff is the drummer, and everybody else kind of builds the song off of what the drummer does.
Sure. Well, I mean, everything's really worked out, with these demos when he sends me this stuff, and then we go back and forth. So we really kind of work things out completely. And then what I do at that point is I'll start from scratch, and what he has sent me isn't the real guitars. Those are just kind of like the demo guitars.
I hear you. Yeah.
So if I want to listen to the demo guitars while I'm tracking the song, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll turn them off and I'll just play, I'll play the parts that I already have worked out in my head, and I've written them down or whatever, and I'll play those parts and not even pay attention to the guitars, because they are, demo guitars, demo bass, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he'll listen to what I what I play, and then what he'll do is he'll re-record his guitars. So you're right in the fact that the drums are done first, as far as the main recording, the real recording. But demo, it's a whole different thing.
Oh, wow.
I'm listening to
his track.
I'm listening to his stuff that he's sending me.
Oh, amazing. Now let me ask you, like, when you have a track that's 11 minutes long, do you guys kind of like go in saying, okay, we want this track to like have a certain type of sound, and let's make a 10-minute track, or is that just kind of the way it comes out?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how Jim does that and how he's feeling a song.
Yeah.
The song that you mentioned was The Longest Shadow of the Day.
Yeah.
And that song actually, that song was, we kind of look at that song as 4 parts.
Oh,
okay. It has that sort of front section where it has, it's a lot of soloing back and forth between the two guitarists and the bass. And then the song kind of, it kicks in after that into this 6/8, 12/8 sort of groove. And that's the second section. And then the song kind of breaks down, and it goes into like this, mellow part. And then Ray finally comes in with the vocals. And then it kind of builds towards the end. And that song in particular is kind of in 4 sections. That's the way we think of it when I was demoing it. So I think it just varies, with the song as to how
long it is.
How the song, and how it sort of develops when Jim's writing.
Okay, because I'll tell you what it reminds me of. I recently got a chance to hear. I wasn't that familiar with the very first Judas Priest album, Rock and Roll, and I had a chance to hear it in its entirety. And if you've never heard it before, it's kind of interesting because it you can see what Judas Priest would become, but it sounds nothing like what Judas Priest is today. I mean, you could kind of see the progression of the band, and like it sounds nothing, for example, like Painkiller or even British Steel.
Sure.
But what's interesting about it is part of the reason is some of the tunes were on that album were written by the original singer Al Atkins. So even though Halford sang it, somebody else wrote some of the songs. So there's partly that. And there's this one track on there. the name is escaping me, but it's kind of like the song we were just discussing. It's like an 8-minute song, and they divide it kind of up into 4 parts, and I think that's probably the first and most progressive thing that Judas Priest has ever done. But yeah, they did the same type of thing, cut up into like 3 or 4 parts, and it's, to me as a listener, it's an interesting way to do music. But the reason I brought up the song that we were talking about that you guys just did on the new album, it's called The Largest Shadow of a Day. It's interesting that you got an 11-minute song, because back in the day, I'm sure you've heard stuff like even a classic rock band like Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, although it's a huge hit now, back in the day a record company was like, we don't want to release that, it's over 5 minutes, nobody's gonna play it on the radio. But it's kind of cool, modern day 2020, that bands can go in there and record an 11-minute track, and you're not going to get that kind of talk necessarily from a record company. People don't maybe necessarily care, and fans probably dig it, because I can tell you, like, if you went to see a band like Deep Purple back in the day, that's one thing I love about the classic Deep Purple. You could go and you'd see Ritchie Blackmore and John Lord and all those guys. They would be jamming out on one song for like 30 minutes if you saw them in concert,
Yeah, that's one of the things that's cool about, prog, if you want to say, or progressive rock, progressive metal, is that it doesn't have to follow a formula. You don't have to do like intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, back to the intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, solo, chorus, stop. You don't have to follow that formula in progressive rock or metal. And you can start the song with a guitar solo and then go into, straight into a chorus, and maybe, and then maybe 2 verses, and then the song can get mellow, and then the song can build back up. There's no exact structure, and that's the cool thing about progressive music. But, it's been years, ever since the 70s, or that bands have had songs that are 20 minutes long. Rush, the first side of 2112.
Wow, Jeff O'Toole. Another.
That's it's like a 20-minute song. So it's not a new thing and even for Fate's Warning to have a song that's 10 minutes long. The band has had songs in its history that have been that long. It's part of the progressive rock sort of, like mainstays that a band can put a song out, and the song doesn't have to have a certain length, and it doesn't have to be to be played on the radio, or it doesn't have to be like, okay, well, this is going to be our hit song, so it has to be this amount of minutes.
And it's interesting that you can, as a musician, I would think, take the audience on a musical journey like that, because one song we were talking about, like you said, is kind of divided up into 4 parts. So if you're sitting there in the audience watching the band play live, you're kind of like, might not even be aware it's the same song unless you're a diehard fan. You're kind of, this sounds different. And then when you realize, oh no, that's the same song. But it's kind of cool, because instead of the song having just one beat all the way through, you're really taking them on a musical journey. And I think the cool thing, like you said, I think fans and people in general are more accepting of something like that these days, which is pretty cool, And let me ask you, Bobby, as far as your influences, first of all, I'd like to ask you, I always love to ask everybody, you're a drummer, obviously, so what made you gravitate towards the drums? What made you pick the drums as your instrument of choice?
Well, that goes back to, when I was 10 years old. When I was growing up in the 70s, that's when I grew up, and listening to music. Me and my brothers were listening to just radio hits, pop radio hits, and we started to really get into music. And so for Christmas, my mom and dad got us a little toy drum set and a little keyboard, piano, a little organ. And my younger brother actually started picking up the organ, playing like little Christmas songs or whatever, pretty quickly. And for me and my older brother, both of us kind of played around with the toy drum set, but not really a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So my brother started taking piano lessons.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, my mom asked me and my brother, but mainly I guess asked me and my older brother if we wanted to take drum lessons, and I said, yeah, maybe I'll do it, you know.
Yeah.
So it kind of was a little bit of a fluke how that turned out, where I don't know if I showed a lot of interest in the drums at that point when I was 10 years old, but she, suggested it, and I took a few lessons, and I started to kind of get into it a little more, and then it just kind of
took over your life. Yeah.
Built. At that point, it sort of built from there, and I was able to, accelerate my playing, my learning, my studying drums, and that sort of thing, and it just, and it turned into a career for me.
Wow, and let me ask you, how much of it had to do with, like, I've heard a lot of drummers especially say has a lot to do with, like, getting your aggression out, or, beating those drums, and you can just really let off maybe when you got something on your mind?
Not at all.
Not at all. Wow.
It's not a. The drums are a physical instrument, of course, but it had nothing to do with. I want to pound something now, the drum set is going to be. I'm going to take it out because I'm pissed off at my girlfriend or something. It had nothing to do.
Wow.
Nothing to do with that.
But yeah, like you said, it's real physical. It's kind of interesting because you look at drummers. There's two types of drummers. There's a guy that just kind of sits in the back of the stage and keeps time, and there's guys that play like you, John Bonham, Carmine Appice, that are real physical players, and they really are rocking out. And you just can't. Even Carmine Appice. Every band that guy's ever been in, he's kind of been the main guy. But everybody, even when he was playing with Rod Stewart, it's a Rod Stewart band, but he was outside Rod Stewart. He's the most recognizable member of that band,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing. And now, who were some of your influences growing up as far as drummers?
Well, as I mentioned, when I was starting to play drums, it was mainly just listening to the radio and listening to, like whatever was on the radio.
I hear you.
But the first guy that I guess really made me pay attention to the drums, of course, was Neil Peart from Rush.
Wow.
And then, then I had a lot of influences after that. Other drumming guys, Simon Phillips, Timmy Bozio, and then Bill Bruford. So many different influences.
It's kind of interesting you bring up Simon Phillips because he's played on a lot of like classic, rock and hard rock albums, and as a studio guy, kind of like what you're more than just a studio guy, but like you said, you've done a lot of sessions, and I even think he's played on a Judas Priest album or two, but he's synonymous with on so many great albums over the years that people's record collection.
Yeah, most people when they look at his catalog, of course, and he's, because of the fact that he was never like the reoccurring musician on with a certain band. He's not really associated with a band per se.
That's true. Yeah.
Being a studio musician,
yeah.
But some guys have careers like that, and some guys are with the bands, like one band forever. It's kind of different.
And kind of like Bob Kulick. Yeah, Bob Kulick, who recently passed away. He kind of had a similar type of career where he's known for playing on some of those great Kiss albums. He used to play with Meatloaf and Alice Cooper, but he was primarily known as a session guy. He played on like albums by Lou Reed and Diana Ross, and for a session guy, he's probably one of the more known session guys that had quite a successful career until he passed this year. But now let me ask you: you've also played with Halford, so talk a little bit about what it was like to play with him and getting that gig.
It was kind of a dream come true for me when I got the gig, because you mentioned the Rock-a-Rolla record, but the first record that I ever owned by Judas Priest was Sad Wounds of Destiny, which was the second record.
Of course, yeah.
And I was a kid listening to that.
Wow.
So listening to that record and then growing up with it, and then following Judas Priest, Rob, in his whole career. Mm-hmm. If somebody had told me at some point I was going to get the opportunity to play with Rob, play in a band with him, and play on stage with him, when I was really young, if somebody told me that, I would have been, you know, you're crazy, and there's no way that that's ever going to happen.
And you, yeah, and you got to, yeah, you got to play with him at a great time in his career because, you know, when he left Priest, he had Fight, and then he did that 2 project, and Halford, when he put that band together, I mean, that was kind of like his comeback, you know, and that had to have been exciting, especially that debut album, Resurrection. I mean, that was like Halford's, you know, that's why it made sense to call the band Halford. It's like it was his return to the classic sound that everybody knew him for, you know?
Yeah, sure. Working those songs out, and then going out and on stage and on tour, and doing those songs, and then playing the classic Priest stuff. Yeah. That was, you know, it was great. It was an exciting time.
Yeah, and you know, like, do you remember how you got the gig? Like, I mean, was there a cattle call, like an audition, and you just showed up, or did somebody recommend you for the gig?
I was recommended by a friend of mine who was a writer that was sort of as a magazine writer who was a consultant to Rob, his manager.
Okay.
And also I was recommended by Roy Zine, the producer of the record. He was a fan of some of the work I did with Riot, and he had spoke to me about coming out to L.A. and working with him on projects and that sort of thing. So when the Halford gig came open, they auditioned not too many guys. They auditioned maybe 5 or 6 guys, and then I got the calls to audition, and it was pretty much a closed audition. It wasn't, you know, a cattle call like as you mentioned. It was more of, you know, guys that they knew that could do the gig, and more personal, you know, relationships with them, whether it was, you know, with me and Roy Z or me and my friend who's a writer, Chris Liebengood.
Oh, wow.
And that's how.
How cool! Yeah, how cool! That'd be a great opportunity. Obviously, it was now. And the thing I dig about Halford, even to this day, he still puts out a solo album from time to time. Like he's done 2 great Christmas albums. I hear he's got another blues album he's working on. Any chance you might be part of that, or you just don't know unless you get that call, right?
Well, I don't know until, you know, I do get the call. Yeah. But Rob, it's to me, it's looking like Rob right now is when he's doing his, you know, his projects that he's doing that are away from Judas Priest. His brother Nigel is playing drums.
Oh, okay.
And he's using old friends to work with on these projects, and I think that's really cool that he's using some of his friends that he grew up with in England, and you know, kind of reconnecting with his roots. I mean, that's the way it's been happening, you know,
lately, last few years.
What I've seen, and so, but yeah, anytime Rob calls, I'll be
you'll be there.
Glad to do it if you did.
And let me ask you, I mean, you couldn't have been too surprised when you got word that he was going back to Judas Priest. I mean, you probably kind of back of your head always knew that was a possibility.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew that was eventually going to happen at some point.
Yeah, and you know the other member of that band I love, that the guitar player Metal Mike. I mean, he's such a monster guitar player. I think he's very, you know, underrated. It's amazing he's not bigger than he is.
Yeah, Mike is a good friend too. Mike's great talent.
Yeah.
And I worked with him on a project called King Museum, and we recorded a CD and played a little bit and stuff, and that was a really cool project.
Okay, and before we wrap this up, I just got a few more questions for you, Bobby. Now, you also played with Sebastian Bach, and over the years, I know recently you guys were supposed to do kind of a tour to support the 30th anniversary of the debut Skid Row album, and those plans, of course, got knocked out by the lockdown, and now I hear it's kind of the tour's scheduled maybe for sometime, I think, next summer. Will you be part of that tour?
Yeah, definitely. We did one leg of that tour, which was pretty long. It was like a 2-month tour, and we played quite a few of the markets in the U.S. And so then we were taking a break, and then we were supposed to go out and do that tour that is now rescheduled for next spring. That tour was supposed to take place in March, but it's that's kind of like the second leg of the tour.
Yeah.
And there's more there's some Canada dates. We didn't play the 30th anniversary. We didn't do we didn't do shows in Canada. And there's different markets in the U.S. that we weren't able to do. So it's kind of
in the air.
Tour that should have happened.
Yeah.
A year ago.
And let me ask, when you guys do the 30th anniversary show, are you strictly doing the entire Skid Row album, or do you throw any of the Sebastian Bach solo material in the set, or is it strictly Skid Row?
It's all. We come out and we play the whole first record, and then for the encore, we're doing select songs from the second Skid Row record. So there is no Sebastian solo material in the set. We've done. I've been with Sebastian since 2005, so I've been with him for 15 years, and we've done lots of his solo material. Over the last 15 years. So this is kind of just a way to do a tribute to the Skid Row.
Of course. That's why That's why I was asking, kind of, so people know if they go and check it out next year what we can expect. And then I was curious, like, of the albums you played on with him. Do you have a favorite one, or which are some of your favorites that you've had a chance to play on?
I like the records that I've done with Sebastian. They're all a little bit different, I would say. But Angel Down is great.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's probably my favorite, of all of them. I like you said, I dig them all, but that's got to be like the classic of his solo stuff, I think.
But they're all good records.
Oh, definitely. And are there any plans at this point to do a new one, a new studio album, or does it kind of just depend on when all this coronavirus stuff ends?
He's demoing stuff right now with some guys in LA, and so he's putting songs together. But whenever he's ready, I'm ready to do it. Oh,
that's amazing. And then I just want to ask you, in regards to Fate Sworn, the new album comes out, next week on Friday, November 6th. Have you guys even thought about trying to get it? Because depending on where you're talking, different areas have kind of started to open up, or do you know what your plans are touring-wise, or do you just kind of have to see what happens?
Yeah, we don't have any immediate plans at this point, but I'm sure that we'll put something together once everything starts to open up again.
Yeah. And any plans, have you guys shot any videos for any of the songs on the new album? Or any plans for that?
No, there's been a couple of the pre-release songs that have come out. Scars has come out, and then there's a lyric video for one of the other songs. I'm trying to think what the other one, but and then Begin Again. There's a video that's going to be coming out for that too. So
cool.
It's mainly like lyric videos.
Well, let me ask you. That was going to be my next question. What's your opinion on like lyric video versus like a standard typical video? I mean, one thing I like about the lyric videos is a lot of times you listen to a lot of the classic songs that we grew up on, and like even Aerosmith songs, and you don't even know what the guy's really saying. But it's a cool thing to me about lyric video. Oh, okay, that's what they're singing, or that's what they're saying.
It doesn't matter to me either way, I think they're okay.
Yeah.
I think they serve a purpose, as far as getting the material out there, and rather than just having releasing the song without a video, and just saying this is our new single or whatever. I think the lyric videos, maybe it gets some people's attention to pay attention, to the lyrics and see what the guy's singing about, and what the song really, the meaning behind the song. So I guess there's a purpose for it.
And I guess like you're kind of saying, there's a certain freedom to being able to just release a single and having to have the video, because oftentimes somebody like releases a music video and fans might because of what is in the video, oh, that's what the song's about, and you're like, no, that's not really that. That's not really what the song was about, but that's how the video director created what was in the video. So there's got to be a lot more freedom to not have to do that necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I say, they serve the purpose, you know.
Yeah. And how do you feel about, like, a lot of times, like I said, you guys are getting ready to release a new CD next week. A lot of times the album leaks, or, you know, somebody gets an advance copy and they put it up on YouTube, like full album and stuff for people to check out before it's even out, and everybody's heard everything off the album before it's even officially released. How do you feel about stuff like that? I guess not too much you can do, or...
No, I mean, you can't really. I mean, when that happens, it's a little bit of a downer, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
It kind of depends on how you look at it. I mean, I could see as a musician, you know, this is how you make your living, and it's very sad because I'm an old school guy. I like to have a physical CD in my hand. Love to look at the artwork and the liner notes and who played on the album and all that. And too many people these days, they just want it. They want it right away. They want it immediately. Like, or they'll hear one song. I got the single. I don't need the whole album. And people, I don't think, kids today, they know what they're missing. I mean, I miss going to a record store. You know what I mean, Bobby? And I used to love going to Tower Records and checking out all the new releases and what was going to be released next week. There was an excitement about it, you know, back in the day when we were growing up.
Yeah, of course. I prefer, you know, a physical copy too. If there's something that I want, you know, an album or something, I'll look to see if I can buy it somewhere, and I'll have it, you know, delivered to Amazon or whatever. And then, but if I can't, you know, I mean, I'll go to, you know, Apple, you know, iTunes or whatever, and I'll try and get it. But I prefer not to. I prefer to have the physical CD in my hand, and then I'll put it on my iPod or whatever.
Of course,
and listen to it.
I mean, you know, Amazon's the way I get a lot of my music, because that's the only way. I mean, unless you go to Target and you want to pick up a copy of the Beach Boys, you know, greatest hits, that's not a wide selection there. But very last question I was going to ask you, a lot, you know, recently vinyl's making a comeback. Have you heard anything about the band releasing the new album on vinyl, or there hasn't been any discussion about it yet?
Yeah, actually, it is available on vinyl, and there's multiple versions of
cool.
it. There's a version where it's, you know, like different splatter colors. You know, there's orange. There's an orange one. There's like a white splatter. There's different. So I think there's like 4 or 5 different versions of it on vinyl. And
you know what's interesting about it is, you know, vinyl has made quite a comeback in probably the last 10 years, and it's amazing because a lot of people don't even have turntables anymore, and a lot of guys I talk to, they tell me, no, I don't even have a record player to play it on or a turntable, but I'm going to buy this stuff just for a pure collector's value. And you know, back when you and I were growing up, you know, you could buy like an LP for like $8.99, $9.99 or so, but because it's so expensive, you know, to make, from what I understand, they only got like 2 factories in the United States, so they're a little more expensive now, like maybe $22, $25, depending on what the release is and if it's a double or a single album. But it's kind of interesting. People have gone back to collecting that, and a lot of people don't even have anything to play it on. But that's quite amazing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't play the ones that I have. That are sent to me from, you know, the record label. I don't actually collect, you know, the new vinyl. If I see something in a record store or whatever that's a classic, or you know, like if I'm going to a store and shopping for that kind of thing, and I'll buy the album and I'll play it at home, you know, while I'm doing some work around the house or something like that. But the new, I don't buy anything that's new that's on.
I totally agree with you, but on that. But I'll tell you, before we wrap up the interview, one site that I recently came across that's a great place, like if you want to find affordable music and classic type stuff, is they now got towerrecords.com, and it's just amazing the stuff you can find on there.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Bobby, for taking time to talk to me. I really appreciated talking to you. We have to do it again down the line, but
all right, sounds good.
Thank you. Take care, buddy. Bye.